My husband threw me out for being childless. I returned 1 year later with triplets at his wedding. My name is Naomi Carter. I am 32 years old. When I think back to how everything started with Adrian Cole, it almost feels like it was someone else's life, not mine. We first met at a charity dinner in New York City, and the spark between us was unlike anything I had ever felt before. Adrian was confident, charming, and had this gift of making everyone in the room feel important. But the way he looked at me that night, I believed I was the only woman alive. From the start, he made me feel safe. He worked in finance, dressed sharp like a man who had life figured out, and carried himself as if success was written all over him. I was working as a paralegal at a mid-sized law firm back then. My life felt plain, but he brought excitement and hope. When he asked me to marry him after a year of dating, I thought I had found my forever. Our wedding was like something out of a dream. We said our vows in a little chapel just outside the city. I remember walking down the aisle, my heart racing, my veil brushing against my cheeks, while Adrian stood at the altar smiling as though he had just won the whole world. Friends cheered, family cried, and I told myself that day was the beginning of everything I had ever wanted. In the first months, life with him was bliss. We moved into a beautiful townhouse in Brooklyn with tall windows, wooden floors, and a kitchen I fell in love with right away. Every corner of that house felt filled with promises of the future: cozy winters, late-night talks, and little children running around the living room. Adrian treated me like his queen. On weekends, we would drive along the coast, stopping at small seafood restaurants, sharing plates, and laughing until my stomach hurt. On quiet nights, he would hold me close and whisper about our future. "I can't wait to see you with our kids, Naomi," he'd say, brushing my hair back. "You'll be the most amazing mother." His words made me glow inside because being a mom had always been my deepest dream. I pictured it all so clearly. Reading bedtime stories to our children, decorating nurseries, even staying up late arguing over baby names. Sometimes I found myself doodling strollers and stick figures in my work notebook. It felt like life had finally given me everything I wanted. Adrian's parents adored me in the beginning too. His mother, Evelyn Cole, would invite me over for brunch. She'd smile warmly, hold my hand, and say how happy she was to have me as her daughter-in-law. His father, Richard Cole, was quieter, but still kind. I felt like I wasn't just marrying a man, but gaining a whole family. I remember one evening about 3 months after the wedding. We were sitting on the back porch, sipping wine, watching the sun set. Adrian leaned over, kissed my cheek and said, "This is our forever, Naomi, you and me. And soon, little ones to fill this house with noise." I laughed and nudged him, but inside, I was already imagining a baby boy with his smile, or a curly-haired little girl clinging to my legs. It all felt so close, so certain, like happiness had chosen me. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was to think happiness could be guaranteed by wedding vows and sweet promises. But at that time, wrapped in love and hope, I truly believed nothing could break us. At night, lying beside him, I whispered silent prayers, asking God to bless our marriage, to bless us with children, and to keep Adrian's love for me as strong as it was then. And when his arm curled around me as he slept, I smiled, believing my prayers were already answered. If someone had told me then that my life would soon turn bitter, that this man who once made me feel like the center of his world would one day throw me aside like I was nothing, I would have laughed in disbelief. But that warm beginning hid storms I could not yet see. In the beginning, I thought I was safe. I thought I had everything. But beginnings, no matter how sweet, don't always show the storms waiting ahead. The first few months after our wedding felt like a dream, but then the questions started. At first, they were soft, but soon they carried a sharp edge I couldn't ignore. "Any news yet?" Evelyn Cole would ask over brunch, tilting her head in that fake sweet way mothers do when they're prying. Adrian Cole would squeeze my hand under the table and smile, telling both of us that it was still early. I told myself not to worry. Some couples take time. I marked my calendar, counted days, bought test kits. Each time I stared at that single line, something inside me broke a little more, but I hid it. I told myself it was stress, maybe travel, maybe just my body adjusting. Months passed, and the glow of newlywed life started to fade. Adrian was patient at first, brushing off his mother's little comments and my quiet panic. But I saw it in his eyes each time I came out of the bathroom, disappointment written all over my face. The sparkle that once shined at me across the dinner table was replaced with silence. The sound of his fork hitting the plate. His eyes staring too long into his glass of wine. I tried to keep up appearances. To my coworkers, I was still Naomi with the perfect husband, the nice townhouse, the bright smile. But behind closed doors, I was someone else. Someone who held her breath when another month passed. Someone who stayed up late searching, "Why can't I get pregnant?" until my eyes blurred. Someone who pressed her face into the pillow to cry quietly so Adrian wouldn't hear. After 6 months, I suggested we see a doctor. Adrian agreed, though I could tell it hurt his pride. Sitting in Dr. Marcus Hayes's office, I felt stripped of all dignity. Blood tests, hormone checks, questions I barely knew how to answer. I pushed through every test, desperate for hope. The results came back clear. No problems, nothing wrong. I should have been happy, but instead I felt mocked. If nothing was wrong, then why wasn't I pregnant? Dr. Hayes told us to be patient. Eat healthy. Reduce stress. He said it like they were switches I could just turn off and on. But when you want something so badly, every day feels like a ticking clock. Every month is another failure. Adrian's patience started to fade. He didn't yell, but his silence said enough. He came home late, sometimes skipped dinner. The kisses turned into pecks on the cheek. The long talks at night turned into silence, both of us scrolling on our phones, avoiding the subject. One night, lying beside him, I whispered, "Do you still believe we'll have a baby?" He didn't answer right away. He stared at the ceiling, then muttered, "I don't know, Naomi." Those words cut into me like glass. I kept going back to Dr. Hayes, hoping he'd finally find something to fix. Each time, the answer was the same. Nothing wrong. Sometimes I wondered if maybe it was Adrian, but saying that out loud felt like betrayal. So I stayed quiet and carried the full weight myself. My body became a battlefield. Every late period gave me false hope, only to crush me when the test was negative. I started hiding the boxes of test kits so Adrian wouldn't see how often I was checking. He didn't ask, and I didn't tell. The worst part was the loneliness. I couldn't even bring myself to tell Danielle Brooks, my best friend, how bad it really was. She was busy with her 2 kids, posting school recitals and family pictures online. Each photo stabbed me with envy and shame. I'd smile at her updates, send heart emojis, while inside I was falling apart. By the end of that first year, the silence in our home became unbearable. It wasn't the comfortable silence we once shared. It was heavy, suffocating silence that made me feel like I was disappearing. The silence in our home hung like smoke, heavy, suffocating, and unspoken. I knew Adrian Cole was slipping away from me. I could feel it in the way he turned his back at night, in the way he avoided every talk about the future we once planned with so much excitement. And though I tried to hold on, lighting candles at church, whispering prayers in the dark, clinging to stories of women who conceived after years of waiting, deep down I was terrified. Terrified I was already losing him. Terrified that my dream of motherhood was nothing more than an empty illusion. Terrified that love was no longer enough. It didn't take long before whispers from Adrian's family turned into open conversations. At Sunday dinners, I felt their eyes on me, weighing me like I was a mistake they couldn't return. Evelyn Cole's once warm smile had turned into tight lips, and her questions grew sharper. "So Naomi, when will we hear some good news? Adrian isn't getting any younger, you know." I forced a polite laugh, clutched my glass of water, and muttered something about patience. But inside, her words felt like heavy stones. Adrian stopped defending me. In the early days, he would squeeze my hand under the table, brush off his mother's remarks, and remind everyone that it was still early. Now he stayed quiet, letting their words hang in the air, almost as if he agreed. The gossip spread beyond the family. Neighbors noticed that after more than a year, our house stayed quiet. No toys, no strollers, no signs of children. Danielle Brooks, my best friend, would sometimes mention how women at church whispered, "That's the Carter girl, married 2 years now, still no child." I pretended not to care, but at night I lay awake, replaying those words over and over, wondering if maybe I really was broken. The world outside wasn't kinder either. I remember standing in line at the grocery store when 2 women behind me whispered just loud enough for me to hear. "Such a shame. Pretty girl, rich husband, but what good is she if she can't give him kids?" My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the milk. Adrian changed too. He grew short with me, less affectionate. His patience worn thin by my failure to conceive. After long days at work, he'd come home and barely glance at me before disappearing into his study. Our dinners, once full of laughter, were now quiet meals where his only words were, "Pass the salt," or "Don't overcook the pasta next time." One night, after a tense evening at his parents' house, I finally confronted him. "Adrian, why don't you say something when they humiliate me like that?" He sighed, ran his hand through his hair, and muttered, "Because maybe they're right, Naomi. Maybe we're wasting time." My chest caved in. Wasting time? I'm your wife, Adrian. Not a broken machine you can just replace. His eyes were cold when they met mine. A marriage without children isn't really a marriage, Naomi. You know that. That night, I cried myself to sleep, curled on my side of the bed while he turned away, snoring softly as if nothing was wrong. The weeks that followed were full of humiliation. Evelyn stopped inviting me to brunches. At family gatherings, they toasted to Adrian's future as if I wasn't even part of it. Once, Richard Cole even pulled him aside right in front of me and said, "Son, you're young, successful. You can still have children. Don't let her hold you back." I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. Danielle tried to comfort me, saying marriages weren't only about children. But her words felt hollow when I went home to a husband who barely looked at me. Each day, the weight of expectation grew heavier. Each failed month was no longer my private pain. It was fuel for his family's judgment and fire for Adrian's frustration. I didn't just feel empty in my body. I felt empty in my soul. The love that once poured between us had dried into a desert. And no matter how much I watered it with prayers and tears, nothing grew. The cruelest part of all was that I still loved him. Even as he pulled further away, I clung to the memory of who we used to be. As Adrian drifted further away, and as his family sharpened their tongues against me, I clung to the memory of who we used to be. I told myself if I just held on, if I just endured, maybe things would change. Maybe a miracle would still come. But miracles don't arrive on demand. And patience, no matter how strong, can wear thin when rejection stings every month. I began to wonder if love alone could survive in a house filled with silence, where every smile was covered in disappointment, where every glance from my husband carried the unspoken word, barren. When the pressure became too heavy, I threw myself into every solution I could find. If there was even a whisper of hope, I chased it. Dr. Marcus Hayes kept telling me there was nothing wrong, that I only needed patience. But patience felt like a cruel joke when each month ended in tears. I started with the medical path. More blood tests, more ultrasounds. Ovulation kits lined up in the bathroom like soldiers waiting for orders. I tracked my cycle with apps, journals, even sticky notes on the fridge. I became obsessed, checking my temperature every morning, treating every little symptom like a sign. At first Adrian tolerated it, but soon he began to roll his eyes. "Naomi, you're overthinking it," he'd snap, tossing his keys on the counter. "Maybe if you just relaxed, it would happen." Relax. As though it were that easy. When medicine gave me no answers, I turned to faith. I fasted, I prayed, I stayed awake whispering scriptures over my body, begging God to fill the emptiness inside me. Danielle Brooks even joined me once. She held my hands in her living room, tears running down her face. "Don't give up, Naomi," she whispered. "God still has a plan." But each time the test showed one line instead of two, it felt like heaven itself had shut me out. Then came the herbal remedies. Ironically, it was Evelyn Cole who suggested them. One evening at dinner, she slid a little brown bag toward me across the table. "A neighbor swears by this tea. Maybe it will fix whatever is wrong." The way she said whatever is wrong cut deep, but I drank it anyway. Every morning I boiled the bitter, foul-smelling brew. I gagged it down, desperate to believe it might help. I visited acupuncturists, herbalists, anyone who claimed to hold the answer. I spent money we didn't even have on supplements and treatments, hiding receipts from Adrian because I knew he would call it foolish. Still, nothing worked. The desperation consumed me. I remember one night standing in front of the mirror, staring at my body like it was my enemy. "Why won't you just work?" I whispered through tears. My reflection looked back at me, hollow eyes, sagging shoulders. A woman I barely knew. Adrian's patience finally ran out during this time. He started staying out late, sometimes not coming home until after midnight. When I asked where he had been, he brushed me off with vague excuses about dinners or meetings. The distance between us grew into a canyon I didn't know how to cross. His words grew harsher too. Once, after I showed him another fertility kit I had bought, he snapped, "You're embarrassing yourself, Naomi. Do you really think peeing on sticks all day will change anything?" I froze, the kit trembling in my hand. He stormed out of the room, and I collapsed on the floor, sobbing until my throat ached. By then, even Danielle didn't know how to comfort me. She'd call and invite me to play with her kids, but I often said no. It hurt too much to be around the very thing I wanted most. Watching her little boy climb into her lap, hearing her daughter giggle, it felt like pressing my face against the glass of a world I could never enter. And yet, I refused to give up. Some stubborn part of me still believed a miracle might come if I just held on a little longer, if I just tried one more thing. So, I kept going. Doctors, prayers, herbs, endless late-night internet searches that left me more confused than before. But the harder I tried, the more humiliated I felt. My dignity was slipping away, thread by thread. My marriage was unraveling thread by thread. Still, I kept chasing hope like a drowning woman reaching for a rope that never appeared. What I didn't realize then was that my desperation wasn't saving my marriage. It was only delaying the painful blow that would soon take my breath away. The day everything shattered is one I will never forget. It was a Saturday morning, the kind that used to be our favorite. We would sleep in late, make pancakes, laugh over silly jokes while the sun filled the kitchen. But those days were gone. That morning, Adrian Cole barely looked at me as he shoved a suitcase into the hallway. My heart pounded as I stared at it. "What's this?" I asked, my voice trembling. He didn't answer at first. He just kept folding shirts into another bag, his movements sharp, almost angry. When he finally spoke, his words cut me like glass. "Naomi, I can't do this anymore." I blinked, confused. "Can't do what?" He gestured between us, jaw tight. "This marriage. This emptiness. I'm tired of waiting. Tired of explaining to everyone why my wife can't give me a child. Do you know how humiliating this is for me?" Humiliating? The word echoed in my head like a cruel chant. I pressed a hand to my stomach, as if to shield myself from the blow. "Adrian, please," I whispered. "Dr. Marcus Hayes said we just need time. I'm still hoping. I'm still trying." He cut me off with a bitter laugh. "Hope? Naomi, it's been 3 years. I can't waste my life waiting for something that's never going to happen. I want children. I deserve children. And if you can't give them to me, then what's the point of keeping you around?" His words felt like a death sentence. I stumbled back, shaking my head in disbelief. You're throwing me out?" "Yes." His tone was flat, merciless. "Pack your things. I've already spoken to a lawyer." I dropped onto the couch, numb. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. The man I had loved, the man I had sacrificed for, prayed for, cried for, was discarding me like I was nothing more than a broken object. "Adrian, I love you," I whispered through my tears. "Please don't do this to us." But his eyes were cold, unrecognizable. "Love doesn't build a family, Naomi. Children do. And clearly, you can't give me that." Those words crushed me more than anything else ever could. I wanted to scream, to beg, to fight, but my voice died in my throat. Instead, I packed. My hands trembled as tears fell onto my clothes while I shoved them into a bag. Later that day, Danielle Brooks came to pick me up. Her eyes were red with anger when she saw me standing on the curb with 2 suitcases and my heart in pieces. "You don't deserve this," she muttered, helping me into her car. But in that moment, I wasn't sure if I deserved anything at all. All I could hear was Adrian's voice, cold and final. "Love doesn't build a family. Children do." That night in Danielle's guest room, I curled up in a ball and wept until my pillow was soaked through. The humiliation burned like fire in my chest. I had given everything to my marriage, and in return, I had been discarded for something I could not control. What I didn't know then was that the very thing Adrian said I lacked, the one thing he believed I could never give him, was already growing inside me. Life hidden, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. And that's where we'll pause for today, my friends. But the story doesn't end here. What happens next will leave you speechless. So make sure you stay tuned for part 2. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the continuation of this unbelievable story. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next.